Welcome back. You're listening to the second hour of the weekend edition of the Korelin Economics Report. Going to start this hour off with a company, one of our new sponsors, and a company that I'm about ready to buy some shares in. The name of the company is Lupaka. I have Eric Edwards with me right now. Eric is the president of the company, been with Lupaka since day one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And you're in Peru. Let's talk about the, generally speaking, the properties, et cetera.
Well, Lupaka is a very new story. We are about as simple as it gets. We began trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange 1 year ago, and after completing the IPO, have been able to fairly consistently deliver on most of the objectives we set forth. But we have one property. It's a gold property. It has an existing resource of 1.1 million ounces in inferred, or indicated, and 600,000 ounces in inferred. So
1.7 million ounces is not a bad starting point, Eric.
It's an excellent starting point.
You bet it is, yeah.
Absolutely. And for a company with a new IPO and a new listing, just doing the prospectus and having an existing inferred and indicated resource, it's an excellent position to be in.
Now, Eric, you guys have $4 million in the bank. That's going to make for a very, very interesting drilling program this year without diluting any of the shareholders. I know you're planning on doing 8,000 meters of drilling. That's going to have to bode well, I would think, for revised 43-101 numbers.
Well, all this is kind of speculative.
I realize that.
We have been able to add, in the past 2 years, 50% to our existing resource base in each of the last 2 years with each subsequent update to the resource estimate. I'd be thrilled if we could do that again this year, but I'd also be happy if we could add another 25%. We're right in the sweet spot of growing our existing resource, and so it's still open to the north and still open at depth. However, that's not the real excitement, I think. That's a great starting spot. The real excitement at Lupaka is that we've only drilled one anomaly, and we have identified 10 that have all of the signature characteristics that we intend to drill over the next couple of years. So it's more than, we're more than a 1.8 million ounce and growing story. We are 1.8 million ounces and 10 other opportunities to duplicate that success. So we feel we're in a great position. Peru's a good country. We've got an excellent management team, supportive shareholders. It's been a very exciting year.
Eric, let's talk a little bit about the management team. Now, you've been, as we were chatting over lunch, you've been involved in the industry for your entire career. What about the rest of the folks?
The founders of the company are two classic entrepreneurs that have been involved in a number of enterprises, from timber to real estate, sand and gravel. And they came upon this unique situation in Peru where this property became available through relationships and friends of family and such. But that's Gordon Ellis and Jeff Courtnall. Some people may recognize the name Jeff Courtnall.
Very, very interesting guy, NHL hockey, if I'm not mistaken.
17 years in the in the NHL.
Actually played in a Stanley Cup.
He did. His name's on the Stanley Cup. I'm not that involved in hockey, so I don't know Jeff from those days, but since leaving the NHL, Jeff has had a remarkable career and is probably best known for his philanthropic activities that he's involved in. From the Courtnall wing of the mental hospital in Victoria that they support and fund annually, and a number of things. So with those connections, we were able to do many of the private fund raisings before we went public. Jeff has been very instrumental, continues to work with us on investor relations. Now, just before going public, we were able to add some very senior people in Peru. I'm proud of our Peruvian team. We have no expats working in Peru. Our country manager is Peruvian, our chief geologist is Peruvian, all of our geologists are Peruvian. Very good technically and a pleasure to work with. Culturally very strong, and they're doing very good.
Peru, actually, I've had a bit of experience in Peru with many of my colleagues. Joey Fries, for example, from Candente, is a good friend. We spent an awful lot of time chatting in Peru. I've been through Peru a number of times. Peru is one of the South American countries that I personally am very, very comfortable with. Obviously, you are too. I mean, you get a lot of support from the government down there. You get a lot of support from the local people, primarily because you support them.
Well, that's an important part of doing business in Peru.
Yeah.
It's an important part worldwide, but particularly in Peru. Peru has a culture of resource export and commodity. They're the #1 producer of copper in the world, number 3 or 4 in gold and silver. So they have a very strong export economy in commodities, and the locals are used to it. And the local communities recognize the benefits of mining and the infrastructure and the jobs. They also want to be treated fairly. We work very hard at maintaining good relationships, providing good benefits early on, not only after production, but early on in terms of medical, veterinary, road improvements, education support, teachers, school supplies, all those things are very important.
Now, you basically obtained the property, as you said, through personal connections, for lack of better terms. I know when Jeff and I talked about how the property came to be in the hands, for lack of better terms, of Lupaka, apparently he went down there and examined the property with a number of other people and felt that this was something I know his passion is the resource industry, but he's, being an ex-NHL hockey player, he realizes that from a technical standpoint, he doesn't have the ability to do something like that himself. Not because he doesn't have the ability mentally, but because he's simply, that hasn't been his deal, so to speak, for his entire life. He's involved in philanthropic work, etc. But he did get bitten by the proverbial gold bug. He told me just after he got out of hockey, he said, I got so much support from the brokerage community for my philanthropic work, as you mentioned, with the wing in the hospital, et cetera, from brokers. He said, I got to know the brokers, and I realized that these are the kind of people I wanted to do business with, and consequently, Lupaka came to be. Now, I am very, very intrigued with the fact that you guys are starting out at such a high level. 43101 numbers of 1.7 million ounces is one heck of a place to start.
Well, it is. And Jeff, going back to the beginnings of the company, Jeff saw this as something that he knew would grow. But to his, Jeff and I work very well together, and to his credit, he knows what he's good at. And so they brought in me to complete the IPO and build a management team. And we've been fortunate in a number of regards, in terms of exploration success and in terms of people. Just a few words about myself. I mean, I've been in the business for...
I actually was going to come to that next.
Okay. I've been in the business for a long time, 25 years. Started off as a geologist, did a lot of field work. Went into got a business degree and went into operations. 15 years at operations and the last 15 years at corporate offices. So it gives me a good basis for exploration, for mining operations, and for the public side of shareholders fundraising, that kind of thing, investor relations. So I certainly am having a great time. We've got great shareholders, as you said, people who were brought in for other reasons and through other connections. They're very supportive. They're reasonably happy with our success. This has been a difficult year, but Lupaka has done considerably better than the market in general.
Lupaka, I was going to bring that up. You guys have done a great job. You're trading upwards of $1.90 was the last time I looked, and I'll tell you, for an exploration stage company in this particular market, my hat's off to you, my friend.
Well, thank you. We're not content.
Sure.
But we've outperformed the gold index. We've outperformed the TSX Venture Index. And so we feel ourselves fortunate. We're not content. We're working very hard this year to try and add more to resource ounces.
Oh, sure.
Add significant new discoveries, working hard on community relations. We thank our shareholders and on our board for their support. And so we're looking forward to a very exciting year this year.
I'm looking forward to an exciting year with the company also. 3 days before I pull the trigger, so to speak, I will be letting you know I will be buying shares in this company. I think it's a very, very interesting situation. Now remember, this is not investment advice. Neither Eric nor I are registered investment advisors. This is simply a company that I have a real interest in. Take a look at it. If you want more information, click on the banner. Big Al's going to be right back.